Hello everyone, you are watching the channel Incredible Facts. Tanks were an important weapons system in World War II. Even though tanks in the interwar years were the subject of widespread research, production was limited to relatively small numbers in a few countries. However, during World War II, most armies employed tanks, and production levels reached thousands each month. Today, we will show you the 10 most incredible World War II tanks. Panzercamp Wagon 3. The Panzercamp Wagon 3, commonly known as the Panzer III, was a medium tank developed in the 1930s by Germany and was used extensively in World War II. The Panzer III was intended to fight other tanks. In the initial design stage, a 50mm gun was specified. However, the infantry at the time were being equipped with a 37mm PaK-36, and it was thought that, in the interest of standardization, the tank should carry the same armament. Additional frontal armor gave the Panzer III frontal protection from many light and medium Allied and Soviet anti-tank guns at all but close ranges. However, the sides were still vulnerable to many enemy weapons, including anti-tank rifles at close ranges. Panzercamp Wagon 4. The Panzercamp Wagon 4, commonly known as the Panzer IV, was a German medium tank developed in the late 1930s. The Panzer IV was one of the most ubiquitous German tanks, and the second most common German fully tracked armored fighting vehicle of the Second World War. The Panzer IV saw service in all combat theaters involving Germany, and was the only German tank to remain in continuous production throughout the war. It mounted a 75mm gun and 2 machine guns, and was protected by armor ranging in thickness from 30 to 80mm. It weighed 25 tons, had a top road speed of 25 miles per hour, 40 kilometers an hour, and carried a crew of 5. KV-1. The Kliment-Voroshilov KV tanks are a series of Soviet heavy tanks named after the Soviet defense commissar and politician Kliment Voroshilov, who operated with the Red Army during World War II. The KV-1 tanks were known for their heavy armor protection during the early stages of the war, especially during the first year of the German invasion of the Soviet Union. By 1942, when the Germans were fielding large numbers of long-barreled 50mm and 75mm guns, the KV's armor was no longer impenetrable, requiring the installation of additional applique armor. The KV-1's 76.2mm gun also came in for criticism. While adequate against all German tanks, it was the same gun as carried by smaller, faster, and cheaper T34 medium tanks. T34. The T34 is a Soviet medium tank introduced in 1940, famously deployed with the Red Army during World War II against Operation Barbarossa. Its 76.2mm tank gun was more powerful than its contemporaries, while its 60-degree sloped armor provided good protection against anti-tank weapons. After the Germans encountered the tank in 1941, German General Paul Ludwig Ewald von Kleist called it the finest tank in the world and affirmed the T-34's vast superiority over German tanks. The T-34 was powered by a diesel engine of 370 kilowatts, 500 horsepower, giving it a top speed of 33 miles per hour, 53 kilometers an hour. The T-34 was the mainstay of Soviet armored forces throughout the war. Its general specifications remained nearly unchanged until early 1944, when it received a firepower upgrade with the introduction of the greatly improved T-34-85 variant. Tiger. The Tiger was a German heavy tank of World War II that operated beginning in 1942 in Africa and in the Soviet Union, usually in independent heavy tank battalions. The Tiger I had frontal hull armor 100mm thick, frontal turret armor of 100mm, and 60mm thick hull side plates. The 56 caliber long 88mm KWK-36 was chosen for the Tiger. A combination of a flat trajectory from the high muzzle velocity and precision from the light sight made it very accurate. The main problem with the Tiger was that its production required considerable resources in terms of manpower and material, which led to it being expensive. The Tiger I cost over twice as much as a Panzer IV. Panther. The Panther is a German medium tank deployed during World War II in the eastern and western fronts in Europe from 1943 to the war's end in 1945. The main gun was a Rheinmetall Borsig 75mm with semi-automatic shell ejection and a supply of 79 rounds. The tank's front hull had 80mm armor angled at 55 degrees from the vertical, welded but also interlocked with the side and bottom plates for strength. The Panther was intended to counter the Soviet T34 and to replace the Panzer III and Panzer IV. Nevertheless, it served alongside the Panzer IV and the heavier Tiger I until the end of the war. It is considered one of the best tanks of World War II for its excellent firepower and protection. IS-2. The IS-2 is a Soviet heavy tank, the first of the IS tank series named after the Soviet leader Joseph Stalin. It was developed and saw combat during World War II, and saw service in other Soviet allied countries after the war. Development of the IS series of tanks started in late 1942, began in earnest in 1943 as a response to the performance of the German Panther and Tiger tanks at the Battle of Kursk. The IS tanks were updated versions of the earlier KV with better mechanical reliability and more powerful weapons. The IS-2 was the first production version, weighing over 40 tons. The IS-2 heavy tank was equipped with external fuel tanks and a 122mm gun. M4 Sherman. The M4 Sherman, officially Medium Tank M4, was the most widely used medium tank by the United States and Western Allies in World War II. The Sherman entered service in 1941 and first saw action in 1942. The design was so successful that manufacturers built several different models, including vehicles with howitzers, mine-clearing flails, rockets, and flamethrowers. Some were even equipped with amphibious capabilities or bridges attached to the back. 75mm main guns were mounted in the first M4s, but were eventually replaced by 76mm barrels capable of firing more powerful rounds against the thick German tank armor. The Sherman tanks were faster and more maneuverable than German heavy tanks, and featured a mechanized rotating turret. In an open field, the Sherman could outmaneuver and fire more rapidly than their German counterparts, who had to turn their turrets with hand cranks. T34-85. In early 1944, the T34-85 began production in response to the newer and heavier German tanks, Panther, Tiger. The Tiger was immune to the T-34's 76mm gun from the direct front and from the side only at very close range. The two major changes were that the gun was increased from a 76 to an 85mm gun, and that the turret was enlarged to support the larger gun and to add a fifth crew member, which allowed the commander to concentrate on the tactical situation and not service the gun. The T-34-85 quickly became the standard Soviet medium tank with more than 22,500 in total and over 1,200 per month. After the war, the T-34-85 remained the primary tank used by the Soviet Union until the introduction of the T-54-55. Tiger II. The Tiger II is a German heavy tank of the Second World War. The Tiger II is the successor to the Tiger I, combining the latter's thick armor with the armor sloping used on the Panther medium tank. The tank weighed almost 70 tons and was protected by 100 to 185mm of armor to the front. It was armed with a long-barreled 88mm anti-tank cannon. The Tiger II is issued to heavy tank battalions of the Army and the Waffen SS. It was first used in combat by 503rd Heavy Panzer Battalion during the Allied invasion of Normandy on July 11, 1944. The Tiger II was remarkably agile for such a heavy vehicle. Contemporary German records and testing results indicate that its tactical mobility was as good as or better than most German or Allied tanks. That's all, friends. Thanks for watching. Write in the comments which of the tanks you liked the most. Also, click the like button and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any new interesting videos.